Hi, Jennifer. It's good to see you today.
Hello, Maria. It's lovely to see you.
Uh, um, would you introduce yourself and say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I will. Well, some of you in the church will recognize me from knowing me for a few years, and I'm Jennifer Burford. By the way, there are two Jennifer Burfords that usually come, but the other one is my daughter,
Mm,
and my daughter is actually the person who brought me into Grace. I actually have another church because I live in Scarborough, so I travel quite a ways to Grace. And but she was living on Spadina in university, so
mm,
I wanted to attend with her. At any rate, um, just in speaking about this, I'm going to speak of more of the whole last year of my life here that I've had, because COVID is actually for me
mm,
kind of another layer of what's been
mm,
happening in my life. Uh, this whole year has been quite a faith journey for me.
mm,
I've always been a person of faith, and I've always prayed. I've always attended church, and one of those cradle to grave Anglicans. And for those of you who don't know my situation, you might guess by my sparse hair.
mm,
Um, I've been battling cancer for the past year. In last May, I lost my mother. She was 96 years old, a beautiful, lovely life she'd led. And she was an interesting woman of faith as well, and always she read her Bible and prayed and was very, whatever came, she seemed to be able to always accept and carry on with life. And she didn't have an easy life.
mm,
And so, as well as that, this is, I'm going to be very personal. My marriage of 46 years fell apart,
mm.
and I was diagnosed with cancer. So it was kind of quite a wallop.
Right.
And so when your faith gets challenged
Mm,
by that much adversity, you have to dig deep.
mm,
And
mm,
like I said, I'm glad that I always did have a faith, but I really was digging deep in this past year.
mm,
So uh, for me, when I was just coming out of sort of the darkest part of it,
mm,
I had finished the very severe chemo, which
mm,
had laid me low,
mm,
in at the end of December, and then I actually was a code blue, so I was gone for a bit and was in
mm,
the hospital. So I spoke to Judy Paulson about this one day after church, and she was very interesting because she's also a cancer survivor.
mm.
And we talked about facing your mortality
Yeah.
and how it changes you.
Mm,
Because of course we all know that
yeah.
that's the end. But there's something very different
Mm,
about having had that kind of experience and then coming out of it knowing that God was there.
mm, mm,
And so with the COVID, I was just being able to come back to the church. I'd started back to a choir that I sing in, although I'm still on chemo. I currently, I'm going to be on chemo for a while. Just the particular nature of the cancer is such that I have to continue with treatment for quite a while.
mm,
But it's not as debilitating.
mm.
So that being said, I still have to be very careful and I'm very vulnerable.
Right.
So with COVID, it was
Mm,
like, oh, everything is shut down. And
mm,
I felt, well, I had already been fairly isolated for the past sort of 6 months prior to it. So for me, it probably wasn't as hard as for
mm,
some people
yeah.
because I had been having to wear a mask. I'd been having to be careful where I went and what I did and this sort of thing. And so um, I the one thing that was horrible
Mm,
about it was my father, who is 95, is in a nursing home.
yeah.
And of course, I wasn't able to visit him. He's still there.
Mm,
And again, thanks to modern technology, we've been able to Zoom visit with him, although he's dementia and doesn't realize.
Right.
And the other thing is they're now 1 year old, twin grandsons, and I have a 4-year-old grandson and my daughter. And it was very hard not being with them. And, but they were wonderful too. Again, this technology is amazing. FaceTime every day. And I did what all the grandparents are doing, which is, or I was doing, was we call them the sidewalk or the driveway visit, where
Right.
we go and the children stay because they don't know to stay away. And you get to look at them. And that was wonderful. But most of my days, and I did do that pretty much every day, a short visit up there. And because my daughter lives very close. And I have wonderful people that have done all my shopping. I haven't been in a grocery store since beginning of March. And lovely people that I have some friends that are constantly in contact. But I have to say one thing that was really been wonderful at sustaining, and that is the church services from Grace. I wish so many times, I attend them every Sunday, and I usually watch both of them. But I thought, many a time I thought, oh, I wish I'd had this in September, October, when I couldn't make it to church, when I was very ill. It was so good to sustain, to be able to feel that connection. And I want to thank all the people from Grace who I know have included me. I hear Maria in the prayers on Sundays, and it's uplifting to know that as a community there's that support. And there are specific members, I won't embarrass them or call them all out or everything, who have been absolutely amazing in their support. And I believe that that's God speaking to me through these people. For me, that's what that is. When Peter, I love his midweek message as well. And when he was reading the George Herbert poems, I studied George Herbert in university. My degree is in English. So I thought, oh, and I had those books upstairs and I hadn't looked at them for many years. And it got me reading those different things that came out, and it helped the day, you know, but it focuses you too. And another book that I kept meaning to read and didn't get at it, but now have, is one called A Generous Orthodoxy. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a very interesting examination of faith. And I have really found it good. A lot of good reflection coming from that. And another mainstay for me during COVID is to get outside. You can imagine with the year that I've had that there have been some pretty dark days where there were a lot of tears. And I always had to, on those days, I had to sometimes give myself a stern talking to tell myself to stop pitying myself. And the first thing I do when I get to that point is I pray and I go outside, which may seem odd, but I do. I go for a walk. It never fails. And I walk every day anyway, that I meet somebody and who says hello or waves from the other side of the street. There are neighbors that come out to their driveway and we have a chat. The human connection is there. You don't have to be isolated. It's amazing to go out for a walk and look at the flowers. As you know, spring, it was a great time for me to be out walking. And there are just so many positives. You just I know some people suffer desperately and are suffering. And if I could just give them a message to just put yourself in God's hands. He's there, and there's no question. I lean so heavily. It's a good thing it is God that he can take it, because it's what lifts my spirits.
Mm.
One day walking, it was a particularly bad day, and I was going past, I travel in my own neighborhood, of course, and there was a garden, and it had bloomed, and it was all daffodils.
Mm.
And all I could think about was that Wordsworth poem, that the host of daffodils, and that's what it was. But to me, that's God is in nature. That's where I often find God, in nature, in prayer, and in music. Music is huge. Yeah. I mean, I think it's G.K. Chesterton who said that Bach was the one who, that was the orthodoxy in music for God. And he said, we don't, I think there was a comment about, I won't get it quite right, but something about, well, Mozart and these people, they didn't quite get to the end, but Bach, he did. He saw the whole picture.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I can go on forever. I'm a bit of a talker.
We may call you for another interview then. maybe one in July and one in August. You know?
Well, the funny thing is, I have never been somebody who has been, I really am an Anglican who, you know, we go to church and we are, you know, we try to lead our lives properly. But as to saying any sort of evangelical way, that's not an Anglican. It's not a particularly Anglican way. Not for a 70-year-old woman anyway. You know, it may be in the younger ones, but for somebody my age, it's like, yeah, well, you know,
it's a certain way to be Anglican, right?
Yes. And it's a very staid way sometimes, right? And it's hard, but I mean, like I said, I can go on forever of other examples, but I think what we need to learn is how to listen and to recognize when God's there. And I look back over my life and I think all the missed opportunities when I didn't hear him, or I didn't realize it was him. And I think it's constant in our lives. You know, I feel I feel very much like Brian McLaren in his book, that I'm an unfinished Christian. You know, I said about a pattern. This is probably about 10 years ago. I'm probably off topic, which is what I do. But about 10 years ago, you know, I've always followed the Anglican Journal and the daily readings, and I read them every day. My morning starts with, I always do this before breakfast. I pray, I have my prayers, and I read the Bible every morning. That's how I start my day. And it's how I end my day, actually, too, at night. But you know, you read them, and about 10 years ago, I thought, I don't know if I've ever really read the Bible from start to finish. And I decided I was going to do it. It took me 6 years. I wouldn't say in those 6 years that, and I read every day, and I read it from cover to cover, and then realized how much I didn't know, how much I didn't understand, and how many times I had to go over things. And to this day, there are passages in the Bible, I read them over and over and over, and I still don't understand them. You know, like what is God saying here? And especially like when you go from the Old Testament and the New, to connect them, for me is, okay, this God of the Old Testament, okay, how do I reconcile that God with this God of the New Testament?
Right.
Because for me, it may just be that I'm not wise enough, but there's sometimes is quite a disconnect for me. And so I'm now in the process of doing another reading, but as I say, not in the same way. Like I will spend some time, and then I'll go back, and I thought, okay, now I'll go back to this.
So
right?
a lot more reading meditatively and
Yes.
reflectively,
Yeah.
and not just reading to complete reading the Bible, but
Exactly.
you are wanting to listen.
Yeah. I
So
want to understand it. I want to
right,
understand. I don't know that that's possible for any human to ever
not
actually
totally,
understand
but
it all.
yeah,
I don't think it is.
no.
That's been my conclusion, is that I think we'll never understand it all.
And we just have to keep going and going
Yeah,
until, we see God face to face.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
Jennifer, one of the things that crossed my mind when you were sharing was what a beautiful testimony this is. And it was funny, you said, I'm not, I'm a typical Anglican, talking about evangelism or, sharing. But I want to thank you because that's what you've just done. You've shared your testimony, your personal story. You've been a wonderful witness. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to hear you. I've gotten to know you, but to actually hear more of your story is very moving for me. And I'm sure many will find this a great encouragement. And maybe we can do this again, next month and then the following month. We'll see how it goes. But I would,
I hope somebody, if there's anybody that's ill
yeah,
or has cancer, cancer's a terrible disease.
sure,
And if it can help even one
for
person,
sure.
give them, you know,
Yeah.
the people I've met at Princess Margaret,
Mm-hmm.
that's another place that it moves you.
Yeah.
And people, cancer patients want to talk to each other
Yeah, for sure.
because you do understand,
Right. Yeah, and we have parishioners who are experiencing the same, and I'm sure they appreciate what you've shared, and I'm sure they would also like to be able to share their stories, and
Mm.
that's something we can look at doing in the months to come. So I want to thank you, Jennifer, for spending this time with me. We'll
Thank
keep in
you.
touch. Please know we keep praying for you, and we won't stop, and we'll always look forward to hearing from you and getting updates from you.
Oh,
So
thank you, Maria. It's
send
you
my love
guys.
to grandkids.
Oh, I got to hug them because we now have a social circle.
Finally, right,
So
good.
I got to hug
Good.
them today. So
Yeah.
okay, thank you for upholding me.